Like what was funny? Did your kids not like what you cooked for the 37,467th time?
Correct. That did happen. If a company's sponsoring a recreational event, a baseball game,
I like
rugby
baseball.
game,
Yep.
do employees need to sign waivers?
Well, first of all, rugby? Really? That's really ambitious. Baseball, okay. Many employers, understandably, are concerned about what their liability could be if somebody's injured during the course of that activity. Well, the threshold question you always have to address is, well, is it covered by workers' compensation legislation? If you're an employer paying in, then of course the whole trade-off is the employee can only seek benefits through the workers' compensation board, and the employer pays assessments. So if it's related to employment, which is what the workplace insurance legislation requires as a precondition for an employee to make a claim, well, then an employee, if injured, then would proceed with a claim before the board. So the question sometimes is this event somehow in the course of employment? Typically they are, because an employer encourages employee participation. Often it's during work hours, so the employee's paid during that period of time. And there are other factors as well, but if by and large it's the expectation that the employee participate, well, then it's likely work related or in the course of employment and therefore compensable. So an employer securing a release from an employee, it's meaningless, because the employee is going to file a claim if injured at the board. And yes, if the employee secures benefits as a result, then that's going to impact on the assessment that the employer pays. So in that situation, it's really, quite frankly, wholly unnecessary and not going to be enforceable, certainly as it relates to the employee seeking benefits from the board. But also, the employer has to keep in mind there's an occupational health and safety issue. If somebody's critically injured and it relates to employment, and there's some issues of on premises or not, but as a general statement, the employer may have obligations as it relates to taking all precautions necessary, right, to protect the employee. And if, for example, the employer used really bad equipment and the employee is injured, well, that may be a violation of occupational health and safety legislation, and the employee even theoretically could be prosecuted. And what's also interesting, now you're really like sorry you asked the question.
I usually am.
But what's really interesting as well, certainly in Ontario, there's a Court of Appeal decision, and leave to appeal at the Supreme Court of Canada was denied on the issue of what if you're not covered by workers' comp. You would think if you're not covered by workers' comp, well, then you can have an employee sign a release and waiver with respect to any claims related to injury. But the Court of Appeal said absolutely no way, you can't do that, because the workplace safety insurance legislation provides for the ability of an employee to sue unless the employer's paying in. So if the employer's not paying in, the employee maintains that right to sue, and you can't contract out of it. So the bottom line is, even if you're not what's called a Schedule A employer, you nevertheless will have to face a negligence suit if at the end of the day whatever the employer did is negligent and damages would ensue as a result. Weird spot. I know, but it's like almost a highway here.
Not really.
Highway to hell, but